Hello everyone, and how are you doing? I am Diamond Suma. I am a Mandela Washington Fellow assigned to the University of California in Davis. Today, as part of our public leadership track, we had a visit to the Secretary of State's in Sacramento, for California, and after her presentation, she asked for questions. But our presentation mainly it's about how they got there, how transparent and accountable they are, and how the citizens have a voice to question them on quite a variety of issues. So me coming from Sierra Leone, also a country practicing democracy, we've just been through elections last year and to date. And I am working as part of what I do to broaden civic space in the legislative process, and also how can many citizens have a voice on governance issues. So I raised my hand and I stood up and I asked her this question because I am in search of solutions, because there are very much progress being made so far by the organization I work for, different players, other organizations, civil society, the media. But how did United States, the city of California, the state of California got it right? And so I posed this question, and my question was, how can citizens have a voice? And here is what she said, or better still, listen to my question in the event, and also followed by her response, which actually took like 5 to 7 minutes. But what I gathered from her response, let me just conclude with that. She gave me critical steps that I can say framework that we as a nation can take through. So as part of this process, this is something, of course, I have a very good and a strong relationship with the chairman of the National Council for Civic Education and Development through my work within the open government space, and also collaborate this also with the work I do with the Parliament of Sierra Leone and persist on it to see how best these can be plausible steps to look. Some of them we've been through, but to review on its effectiveness and dynamism. So please take some time to watch and listen to her, and then let me hear your thoughts in the comment section on how we can do it. Thank you so much for viewing.
I was having the waiting question. Yes. Thank you, Madam Secretary of State. Well, I work in the democratic governance space, so my interest is how we can broaden Sierra Leone. You need to come there are a lot of diamonds. So.
My people are from Sierra Leone.
Oh, really? Guys, you're quiet about that. Good. So we're working on broadening civic space in legislative process, in the citizens to have opinions in the lawmaking process and in governance in general. But we haven't got it right. There's a lot of progress being made. I know you took over 100 years to get to where you are, but what could be those tips I can take back home and to say, listen, I have these learnings from California, and we can start doing something to go forward.
So your concern is about the schools and civic education?
My concern is about citizens having a voice.
Well, citizens having a voice.
Sure.
Wow. About democracy. We often talk about in the United States that this is one of the few real stable experiments that have existed in terms of democracy. When you see, and I've been concerned about it as we are going through somewhat of a governmental turmoil in California with people questioning the validity of elections and all that kind of stuff. The thing that happened on January 6th was so out of the ordinary for the United States. So we have begun to not question our democracy, but basically try to understand the democracy, because we've been stable for so many years. We've had such an orderly transition of power that exists. And so it's strange for us to not think that we will always have that. And so when we see what is going on now in terms of the unrest and the people not having a voice and so forth and so on, it makes us once again begin to question not the validity of it, but question whether or not we've done the best we can to help people understand what a democracy is in the United States, and to not take it for granted, to be conscious of what we're doing. And so Democracy requires a tremendous amount of cooperation and faith in people. Because you can write documents, but if people aren't committed to the document and don't want to implement the document, then people can abuse it. And that's what we're discovering in this country. Right now, we have some questioning with regards to people trying to abuse or challenge the documents and the principles that this country's been built on. And we're slowly realizing that it is not something that we can take for granted, that we have to constantly educate our young people on it. We have to forever be vigilant when people try to attack it, because people will do that and they do that. And you have to be prepared to defend it. You know, we are, in California, we're one of the states that has probably the broadest voting, we have the largest voting rates, but probably the broadest opportunity for people to vote. And so some states have created regulations against it. And you know, voting and civic engagement was the primary focus of the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King. So when we think about voting and civic engagement, we have to realize that it's not necessarily for everyone 100 years old, because we had rules and regulations that prevented African Americans from voting and prevented women from voting in this country. They assumed they could rely upon their husbands to take care of them, and on and on and on. And so this is not a new thing for us, but it's not as old as we sometimes think it is. So we have to constantly raise those issues and help people understand it, because we take it for granted in this country that there will always be a democracy, that our system will work. There are three branches of government: the Supreme Court, the legislature, and the presidential branch, the executive branch, will always function well. We've taken that for granted, and that's a model that's in every state that we have. And so we're basically, I think what we're doing in this office, because our job is to make sure that everyone who is eligible can be engaged politically in terms of being able to vote in California. So what we've done is that we've removed a lot of barriers to voting. You know, there are many states that says if you've ever committed a crime, a felony, you cannot vote again, or you have to get permission from the governor to vote. California doesn't do that. If you committed a felony, you can, if you're serving time in prison for a serious crime, as soon as you serve your time, you can vote again. Whether you're on probation, whether you're on parole, you'll immediately be enfranchised. You can vote again. You can vote while you're in jail in California on misdemeanor. We actually have, and we're looking at the ways in which we can make it easier for people to vote in jail. Okay, we pre-register 16-year-olds because the age of voting is 18, and so we pre-register 16-year-olds and high school students to get them ready for voting, because we want them to be able to be prepared to vote when time comes. So there's a lot of different things we do in terms of elections to make it happen. But what we're doing now is we have a special drive in this office called Freedom Summer 2. Back in 1964, there was a Freedom Summer with Martin Luther King and Daniel Hamer and a host of them who went throughout the United States, registering people to vote, giving them the right to vote. And at that time, in 1964, if you tried to register to vote, you could be actually killed by vigilante groups in the United States who didn't want African Americans to vote. My grandfather, who was a descendant of slaves in the United States, never got a chance to vote. He died before the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So he never voted, even though he was born in this country, because if he had tried to register to vote, he would have been killed. My father never voted until he was up in his 30s when he came to California, and California did not attack people for voting, and basically he registered to vote, and he and my mom and the rest of us voted forever. But they came from Arkansas at that time. You could not register to vote in Arkansas and not risk your life. You have a right to, but they would not allow it. So we have to, we're doing something and similar to what they did in 1964, which we're doing something called Freedom Summer, encouraging young folks and others to go down throughout the state to remind people of why we vote, and what the rationalities for voting, and the power that they have when they do vote. And when you don't vote, you lose your power. And so, because we have a number of folks who registered who don't show up and vote, okay? So as a result, we are working on that because that's very, very important. But civic engagement, civic education is critical to help people understand why you vote, Not only just how you vote and where you go and what you register, but more important is instilling in each people a passion and commitment to voting, so that they understand that this is not just their responsibility, this is their life, this is their definition of who they are, the fact that they vote. So you have to work hard, because there are people who don't want you to vote. You know that. We know that there are people who don't care about folks who've been incarcerated in the United States, and therefore they take away their right to vote. And they don't think they should ever vote again. Some people don't think they should ever vote again. We don't believe that in California. We think voting is your right and responsibility, and it is your statement of yourself. So I know in many countries it's very hard. And when I was in Ghana, I met with the commissioner on elections, and she was saying that many of the challenges that we're facing in terms of misinformation, disinformation, people trying to give us the wrong reason for voting or wrong ideas, they're struggling with the same things in Ghana. This whole issue to try to take over people's rights to vote and turn the democracy into something else is very prevalent across the nation, across the various nations. And so, but I found that education, making sure that young people and those around know why they vote, know what happens when they don't vote, understand the power of voting, and that it is their voice and their opportunity to influence their life and to change their world for them. So, strong advocate for voting, and encourage you to educate young people and others, adults as well. That's why they vote and why you need to vote and what happens when you go to voting.
Sure.
What happens when you don't vote? And I explain that to people all the time, how difficult it is to be an elected official and have a district that doesn't vote. It takes away my ability to influence other votes in a legislative body, because my votes are not engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important. Yes,
Thank you so
question?
much.
Yes.